Good morning and welcome to Ignite. This is great to be with you all today. This is the OMV's Cloud Center of Excellence Journey session. My name is Mustafa Kurtulus. I'm working as an Azure specialist for strategic customers in Austria. Currently, we are joining to the session from our beautiful Microsoft office in Vienna. I'm sitting here with my colleagues from OMV Group IT, and we are going to talk about our Azure Cloud Journey. When we look to the agenda, in the first some minutes, we will have a short introduction of the participants, and then we will go about what happened before the CCOE and what is it happening with the help of CCOE, our present time. And then we will talk about what achievements OMV made with the CCOE. And then we will go on. Let's start with Ulrich. Can you please introduce yourself?
Hello and welcome also from my side. My name is Ulrich Endlich. I'm working as a cloud solution architect at OMV already for 3 years with Azure.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Robin Dorn. I'm a cloud architect with OMV IT infrastructure. During the CCOE, I was acting product owner and handed over this responsibility to Uli end of last year to focus on automation and governance topics in the Azure area. As you see in the slide, there are 4 faces. However, here we are obviously only 4. Unfortunately, Thomas couldn't make it on short notice, but yeah, we will hope we will manage just the 3 of us.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Robin. For our audience, if they don't know about the OMV, can you please tell us about the details?
Of course. So OMV Group is an international gas, oil and chemicals company with around 25,000 employees worldwide, including our newest addition to the group, Borealis. Our value chain reaches from the wellhead through to the refinery to filling station and also high quality plastics. Therefore, the core business of OMV is not IT. However, due to digitalization, this also gave some additional importance to IT at our company. And yeah, due to the digitalization, also the usage of cloud services became more and more unavoidable.
Perfect. So, as I understand from our colleagues, some years ago, there was a huge RFI from the OMV side, and you wanted a hybrid integration platform and came up with some ideas like, for example, cloud services like Azure API management. This was the first time that you met, I guess, Thomas and some other colleagues from our side. And I heard that it was a small room that everyone was like sitting, hey, how will build the next generation of architecture? And it was the first time that people just heard about Azure, I guess. And how was the going on? How did it look like? I mean, this adoption and the direction and actually the RFI timing.
Yeah, I mean, we started like a lot of companies with a cloud first strategy. However, we had not a too specific plan how to act on that. And yeah, one of the first major contacts was during the implementation of the hybrid integration platform. And I can remember my first time getting into contact with Azure very well. I was not knowing too much about Azure. Of course, I knew that it is the major cloud platform from Microsoft. So I sat in the meeting with Thomas and other Microsoft colleagues, and I listened closely what this big platform had to offer. I mean, for me, it was clear that we, due to our global requirements, will require a global hyperscaler, but it wasn't clear then that we will go majorly with Azure. And yeah, so I read a lot of documentation and listened close and had a lot of workshops with you guys. And I was really, really amazed by the automation capabilities and also the capabilities around governance, which our regular state-of-the-art classic data center didn't offer. At least ours did not. And as you mentioned, the first major workload to land on Azure was the hybrid integration platform. After that, more and more workloads landed on Azure. And we in IT infrastructure were in front of the question, how can we operate this big flexible platform, which is offering so many different services, which we did not have the experts to. So yeah, we had a lot of additional workshops with Microsoft to actually ask what can we do and how much flexibility should we actually allow our clients. And we did not have really an operating model because our classic operating model was more based on existing silos, and this did not really fit the Azure platform. So what did we do as intermediary step? So we defined some processes based on best guesses. And the first thing we did is to implement a cloud shared mailbox that we have a single point of contact for all the different requests coming in so that we can actually somehow act on those, because to just approach the classical contacts out of the silos did not really do the platform fit, unfortunately. And yeah, after that, after a lot of requests, we actually had to get back to Microsoft. So I had a lot of calls with Thomas also to ask, hey, what are application registrations and what does it mean if we allow our clients to have that? So yeah, exciting times. And we also drafted a raw operating model for cloud services. And one thing we also implemented during our early times was to implement the commercial frame for independent ordering of Azure services, that they're then ordered and invoiced directly to the respective customers. And yeah, in parallel to the growing workloads on Azure, there were also discussions around the company-wide M365 rollout at OMV. And this and the data gravity of Microsoft services, as we also had discussions around SAP on Azure, the hybrid integration platform as mentioned previously. This then led in the end to a strategic partnership between Microsoft and OMV. And in those discussions, this was also the first contact point for us at OMV with the Cloud Center of Excellence offering from Microsoft. And it was very interesting from the start because compared to similar offerings from other providers, it wasn't the intent that Microsoft completely operates our Azure platform, but actually to come to us, give us some foundational knowledge and also upskill our own teams, and all this done in an agile way. So yeah, I guess that concludes our basic first beginnings on the Azure platform.
So for all the viewers that we have right now, and Ignite is a learning session actually for all of us, what is next. And Microsoft offers a lot of guidance and a lot of things that how you can do it in the cloud. Like for example, Cloud Adoption Framework or the well-architected framework or some other frameworks that you can choose from our Microsoft Learn and also the architecture frameworks. So this is just preparing our customers to their cloud journey and how the environment looks like, how it will be in the processes, also internally and externally with the other organizations that you are working on. So this is a point of view of a setup guide, and at the end of the day, that it's easier to get along with that. In this case, with the OMV, like the Thomas says always, that they took the premium package and they got directly from the Microsoft the hands-on implementation support, and in the form and its name called CCOE, the Cloud Journey, started that way. And so how did it work out and what changed and because of the CCOE? What you can tell me, guys, for this one, maybe?
Yeah, so when we started with the CCOE, at the beginning, the first phase was an assessment phase. So Microsoft sent over 3 colleagues that came to our on-premises and started to assess our current infrastructure setup. They interviewed experts from different infrastructure teams to get an understanding how our data center structure looks like, how our network topology is established, and how we provide infrastructure services to our customers. But they didn't stop with assessing just the infrastructure layer. They were also interested in how our application landscape looks like, what are typical business requirements for our applications and for the infrastructure. And they also wanted to understand how our organizational setup in OMV looks like, how the customers are organized, as well as how the different IT teams are organized, how they work together, and how the operating model between those different teams was running back then. With all that information at hand, those 3 colleagues went more or less into a war room for 2-3 weeks until they come back with a huge high-level design document. Yeah? And this document contained a lot of surprises for us, because we thought that we had already a quite good setup of our cloud before, but they proposed a completely different setup of the landscape as we had it before. So the main difference there was that they introduced the so-called landing zone concept. So we thought at the beginning this is quite well over-engineered and doesn't fit to us, but at the end it turns out that it was the right decision to go that way. Those different landing zones defined that you can run and operate different workloads in these different landing zones based on the business requirements. On the one hand side, we do have traditional infrastructure service workloads in one landing zone. They are still fully operated by infrastructure teams centrally, and the products they are offered are more or less similar like the on-premise infrastructure products we are offering. So fully responsibility with the central IT teams, from the provisioning, to the backup, to the operations and maintenance of the services. On the other side of the spectrum, we do have a self-service landing zone where people have the full flexibility to deploy cloud services fully on their own. So make full use of cloud native services and applications there. Of course, this flexibility also brings in that they have also the responsibility there. So the operations is then fully done by them in this area of the landing zone. We also do have a zone in the middle, more or less, so that is a split responsibility. So the central team, the platform team, is responsible for the permission handling, the network connectivity setup, and also the implementation of security controls. But the workload itself is fully operated and deployed by the DevOps teams in the different IT business areas we do have. The high-level document not only contained this landing zone concept, it also has a lot of proposals how we can implement all our different security requirements, how we can integrate with our existing identity and access management tools, what kind of role and permission concept would best fit into our already existing structures and processes, as well as a set of shared services that we should provide centrally at platform level to all our customers and should not be deployed over and over again. So with that high-level design document, we aligned with all the different IT teams that might be involved and did some minor changes, of course, here and there, and did all the design decisions so that we were able to ramp up our CC team afterwards from different IT disciplines. So we took people from classical infrastructure teams like network and provisioning and server operations, but also some from the application development side, so that we have a broad spectrum of knowledge already in the team right at the beginning. However, there was still quite a lot to learn for us. And one of the key success factors of the C3 concept is that Microsoft sent for each of our teammates one shadowing consultant. So these consultants works together in pairs with our team members and on the same topics. So this was really a hands-on experience together with the Microsoft colleagues. So we were able to understand and it was more or less the best and fastest approach to understand the new ways of working that has been introduced with the new agile approach. Until then, we have been used to use the waterfall projects as a standard at OMV, and the people have to understand what it means to work in an agile way, to define features and functions in a way that they can be implemented and deployed in small increments instead of having one big bang at the end. So the people have to change their mindset and also start to think like a developer instead of just being a sysadmin. So writing code to configure and deploy infrastructure was completely new for us, and we had to learn there. And at the beginning, with the shadowing consultants, together with our team, we started to build up this platform capabilities. So mainly these shared services that are provided to all the workload owners afterwards, the network setup, as well as the connectivity to our on-premise network to allow seamless integration of cloud services into our network. And at the beginning, we thought this should be done in just a few weeks, or as we learned in just a bunch of sprints. But at the end, it turns out it took much longer than expected. But this was due to the fact that we strictly stick to our ambitious goals right from the beginning. So, and this caused a lot of delay, because what we wanted to do is we wanted to deploy each and every platform component purely using infrastructure as code. Instead of using the management plane and clicking and deploying it quite straight away, we created the code for it. Yeah? And this was quite immense effort at the beginning, but to facilitate this approach in general, we started to create flexible and easily reusable modules and products right from the beginning. So once they have been created, you can deploy them over and over again. So even though it was delaying at the beginning, it was speeding up us at the end. And of course, we always had the end-to-end automation in mind for each of our products we designed. So to allow later on a seamless self-service deployment for our customers. This was always a goal for us. And of course, all this happened under an already defined governance framework where we had to stick to, and also considering the split of responsibilities in the different landing zones, so that we are also able to easily apply the consumer-based charging.
Very cool, very interesting. It's a nice story, actually. And by the way, we have also questions from Christian. In this open cloud world, compared to the isolated on-prem environment, how do you have your users and data in the cloud under control, preventing unwanted access from outside? Actually, you gave some examples about it, but maybe some 2-3 sentences again. By the way, everyone can also send some questions. We are checking it at the end of the session, or maybe during the session, we are going to give some answers.
So to secure our data in our environment, we have different ways in the different landing zones defined. We have set and defined security controls that are valid for each and every workload, no matter which landing zone. We also defined different security zones based on the criticality of the data. So, for example, we use for specific strictly confidential data only customer managed key encrypted data and services that allow this. Otherwise, we are not able to run it in the cloud. So we are strict here, and those security controls we have implemented in the traditional landing zone. They are implemented directly within the products. In the self-service zone, they are responsible to implement them themselves. We hand over the controls, what needs to be implemented. We, of course, support our workload owners, how it can be done. But we assess them together with them whether they met all our requirements.
Mm-hmm. If I might add, I think identity was also a question.
Exactly.
So basically, for each of the landing zones, we have a strict definition what would be the maximum permissions they will receive for each landing zone. And there they will only receive it, obviously, for their own workload. And all this goes hand in hand with a very strict naming convention, and also where it is applied, and also the approvals. So yeah, those were all quite sensitive discussions up front, but that really paid off, because I rather have a long discussion up front where basically the maximum permissions are clarified instead of doing this on a case-by-case way.
So one generalization, let's say, and Azure, that you can also always do this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I have one more question. How do you ensure customer-based charging in your goals without setting up too many billing accounts?
We actually have a solution in place with a third-party provider. So the monthly Microsoft bill goes to our Microsoft reseller. They pay initially the full bill, and based on the split and the data we get from the Azure portal, we have an automation in place that, because every time you request a workload or a landing zone from us, you tell us how you're intending to pay for that. Mm-hmm. And based on that information, we map all the purchase orders to the resource groups and subscriptions, send this information to the third party, and they send us then as many different bills as we ask them to. And yeah, this really paid off. also was quite some work in the beginning, but yeah, this also paid off in the end, because of course the urge to consume a lot of cloud services is a little bit more disciplined if you have to pay for them yourself directly, instead if this goes to a big bucket and is then split at a later time with intercompany charging.
Cool. One more question. Should we go on? How was the management leadership convinced of starting and investing in this major organizational change? As most enterprise level organizations have a lot of trouble in making this transition, what tips and tricks do you have to kickstart this?
Shall I? I mean, gladly, there was already a good convince that our management was already quite convinced that the cloud is the future, as this was spread by a lot of consultants and also big suppliers like Microsoft. So there was a good base conviction already there. But I would say what really helped is that we tried to, or I at least tried to guide them towards not too many providers, but seldom strategical providers, as otherwise you basically kill yourself with operations, because you cannot have experts in 17 different cloud providers. And I guess that helped. Also, I must actually say that the good services and also promises Microsoft made in advance also helped. But yeah, in the end, I must say the conviction, our management was already quite convinced from the start. And yeah, we all pulled into one direction, sat together, and were quite synced in what would be the best way to go there. So I guess put together management and technical experts and the suppliers in a room, and then just think about the best decision. Sounds simple, but yeah, isn't necessarily that simple.
Very nice.
At least that's from my perception. Like, there are a lot of things happening in the background, always, and such complicated. But yeah.
Cool. Some more questions are popping up.
Shall we maybe really quickly go to the next slide at least?
Exactly. And then
maybe this answers already some questions. Then we have anyhow the Q&A section.
Perfect.
Maybe let's cut it short to the last slide.
Exactly. So what was the major achievements that you have? Can you maybe explain us? And then we will go back to the questions again.
Yeah, when looking back what has been done the last 2 years, I think it's quite a success story. Even we have just implemented with each sprints just minor increments. It's not that fancy, but looking at the overall achievement, I think we're quite at a good stage already right now. So with the shadowing concept from Microsoft, our team learned the new ways of working quite fast. And as we also had a lot of touch points with other IT teams, as we worked a lot with them together, we spread our mindset also to the wider IT organization. We introduced the landing zone concept to all the other teams, defined with them together our RACI matrix for each of the landing zones, so that we have a clear split of responsibilities of in each of them. It was quite a lot of discussion, because to get people understanding that they might be responsible for operations on their own was also quite new to us, as it was done formally only by central operation teams. And this was, of course, and the RACI matrix has a completely difference between the different landing zones, as mentioned before. On the traditional side, the responsibility lies with us. On the other side, it was with our customers. And Also, I mentioned before that it took a lot of time at the beginning, but as we implemented all our components and platform deployments purely as infrastructure as code, this increased the quality of our infrastructure services significantly. So we didn't have any manual configuration to do anymore. So we reduced more or less all the human errors that might occur in the past. We have a well-tested code basis that is deployed using and orchestrated with CI/CD pipelines, so that we have also the full visibility of all our deployments and changes in our cloud platform as well. And as we started to write code, we also started to write documentation of all the things we are doing. This was also not that 100% implemented before, I would say, and I think this was a new level of quality for documentation of infrastructure services. And also once created, our reusable artifacts for the modules and products allowed us that we can consistently deploy them again and again and again, because they were that flexible, so you can steer with different parameters how they should look like exactly, while they still have the security already implemented by design. And we also created some reference architectures already for typical workloads coming to us, so that we can speed up the onboarding process for new teams and new projects. And also our end-to-end automation would not have been possible if we would not have used the infrastructure as code. So this was key there as well. But so we defined a framework that allows us to create code for deployments on the fly automatically. We just need some input parameters from our customers. And we are integrating our platform with our ITSM tool that allows us a fully automated process from the request capturing to the code creation to the deployment and the documentation, even in the configuration management database.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Then I suggest we go directly in the QA session.
Yeah, we have 3 minutes left.
If it's possible, we could also continue to answer the questions.
Exactly.
In the chat.
I guess in the chat we can still answer. I will go with the first one, agile versus traditional mindset. I suppose your teams have transitioned to the agile mindset. How is this with the rest of the OMV group?
Shall I?
Yeah.
I would say the agile mindset. So first, we transitioned to the agile mindset, yes. However, this was quite cumbersome because we had a lot of convincing to do, because there were questions like, should we really do it like that? Like really think that long how we should do it and meet every day and talk about what we're doing. And we kept insisting, yes, this is exactly how we do it. So we adopted to that. But unfortunately, I would not say that the whole OMV group adopted to that as well. As Uli mentioned previously, really quickly, the agile mindset, it bled a little bit out into the wider company, especially also in the wider IT company. But I would say this transition is still a big challenge for our company.
Perfect. Then I will go to the next question from Anton. How do you manage onboarding of workloads with the same team that build the core platform, or a separate implementation teams?
So if you talk about workloads that using classically infrastructure as service products, we do have products in place. We simply need to have the parameters and can deploy it via code more or less fully automated. If you look into more self-service zones and workloads deployed there, the customers are responsible for setting up the services on their own. Of course, we are helping them. And at the beginning, in the demand intake process, we decide together what kind of operating model we want to have for which of the services they intend to use, and define together where the landing zone is and what needs to be done by which of the different teams.
Quite good. Yeah, it's perfect. And one more question. It's a little bit very. Is OMV planning to completely move from on-premises to the cloud?
Not in the foreseeable future.
Not in the future.
So the strategy is really to stay a hybrid IT company.
Yeah.
At least for the foreseeable future. However, there are strict definitions which workloads should land where. Yes.
And also that we are going to have an Austrian data center, Azure data center, and we were talking about the parameters and all kind of stuff that you wrote actually with the infrastructure as a code so that you can change these parameters and maybe deploy to the Azure data center in Vienna, in Austria, actually.
Of course, we're looking forward for the Azure data center in Vienna because this will allow us to deploy workloads with quite low network latency and also allows us to onboard workloads into the cloud that have local in-country storage requirements. So, yeah, we're happy to get a data center close to our head office, of course.
Yeah. Cool. So I guess we are up with the time. Please just write your questions. We will try to answer them in the chat. And then I will wish you all have a nice day and have a nice Ignite sessions. Goodbye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.